Hello and welcome to the Monday, June 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Wayzata Planning Commission. I hereby call the meeting to order. Great. My name is Larissa Stockton. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission, and I have a few words about how to participate in this evening's meeting. There's hybrid meeting information. The meeting ID is 893-3795-3904. The passcode is 230268. Members of the public may attend this Planning Commission meeting in person or watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and the city website at wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and/or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Zoom call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you'll be seen and heard in our council chambers and the cable channel. You'll be asked to unmute, and then you begin your comment. All public comments must include your full name and address. The city encourages comments or questions about items on the agenda and, when possible, requests that you submit them in advance by emailing publiccomments@wayzata.org, calling city staff at 952-404-5323, or mailing Wayzata City Hall at 600 Rice Street East, Wayzata, Minnesota 55391. Attention, public comment. Great. Next, we're going to do roll call. Director Gellner, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Planton.
Here.
Commissioner Schwalbe.
Here.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Here.
Chair Stockton.
Here.
Commissioner Severson.
Here.
Commissioner Elg.
Here.
Wonderful.
Madam Chair, may
Yes.
I make us say a few words before we get started?
I guess so. May I ask the topic?
I would like to apologize for my lack of decorum a couple meetings ago. I spoke over other commissioners and spoke without first being addressed by you, Madam Commissioner, and for that I am very sorry.
Well, thank you for the self-reflection and apology. It's appreciated. We all care deeply about this role, and occasionally we care more deeply than maybe needed. So thank you very much. Okay. Shall we approve the agenda this evening? Does anyone have any questions or proposed changes to the agenda? Great. If not, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved, Severson.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. May I have a second?
Second, Schwalbe.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Schwalbe. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes, and the agenda is approved. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of two items. We have the approval of the meeting minutes for May 20th, 2024, and B, we have the approval of the Planning Commission report and recommendation of denial for development application at 565 Ferndale Road West, Ferndale Bluff. Does any commissioner have any questions or comments on any item on the consent agenda or wish to pull for separate discussion or action? No. Okay, great. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved, Planton?
Thank you, Commissioner Planton. May I have a second?
Second, Schwalbe.
Thank you, Commissioner Schwalbe. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes, and the consent agenda is approved. Okay, next we have the public hearing item. We have one item on the public hearing for tonight. It's to A, consider the development application for impervious surface and driveway setback variances at 715 Rice Street East. Community Director Gellner, will you be walking us through this application?
I will turn it over to Planner Corals for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Tonight we'll be talking through an impervious surface and driveway setback variance application at 715 Rice Street East. The owners are Jeff and Janet Von Gillern, and their representative is at Pebble Design. And my clicker is not working, so next slide, please. The project is located right here in the middle of town, basically within sight of City Hall. And to zoom in on the property today, it's just off the corner of Broadway and Rice Street East. It's a pretty diverse neighborhood in terms of zoning and land use, but the important things to note for this property is that it's zoned R3A, as are most of its neighbors, and guided central core residential, as are most of its single-family neighbors on the block. For some existing conditions, the lot today is about a 1/4 acre, as are most of the other lots on that block. The house was built in 2001 and was built with and has today about 55% impervious surface area. This is larger. This is a larger amount of impervious surface area than we see on most lots. That's because in 2001, when the house was built, there wasn't actually an impervious surface limit in place for R3A. So that high impervious surface today is protected as a legal nonconformity. This means that they're allowed to continue it, they can maintain it, repair it, replace it, under protections that are both in our city code and in state law. But if you want to, make any modifications that still exceed today's regulations, so for instance, in this case, the applicant wants to make landscaping changes that are still above the 35% limit, then they need to go through the variance process. And we've had a couple of applications like this in the past with this planning commission as well. So the proposal is to decrease the total impervious surface actually to support some landscaping improvements. With that, they'd like to convert a portion of the current impervious surface to what we are going to describe as permeable engineered surfaces, so stuff like pavers, which is still a form of hardscape, but isn't necessarily as, it's not grass, so it's still part of the overall impervious surface, and to reconfigure the location of the driveway. So with this comes 2 requests. One is for an impervious surface variance. They're bringing that 55% impervious surface down to about 50%, though that is still 15.2% above our limit. And the second variance is for a parking area setback. We typically ask that driveways are set back 10 feet off the property line, and some of the changes they're making to the driveway require this parking area setback variance. For the impervious surface variance, there's changes in basically all areas of the property. In the backyard, in the middle of that circle, there's a tree. They intend to remove that and then reconfigure their pavers back there in order to have a new patio, a water feature, and some steppers. That tree removal is allowed under our tree preservation ordinance. There are already quite a few trees on this property, and if you're under the replacement threshold, you are allowed to take down a tree and not have to go through the replacement process or any fee in lieu of inches process. For the driveway itself, you can see that it sort of changes shape. Right now, when you come up from Rice Street and move north, you can see that it sort of slopes away from that side property line. Their intention is to straighten that out, and so that's where our driveway setback variance is also going to come from. And then you can see that in yellow, all of those areas are proposed to be those permeable pavers. So that whole area of the driveway and also that patio in the back are those permeable surfaces. And then in the front yard, some changing of that paver walk that's up there. There's actually a lot of hardscape up there. Have some new walkways, and then they currently have some round retaining walls and a second one down by the street, and they intend to square all that off and create a little bit more yard space up front than they have now. So this image is a good summary for when you're looking at everything in red is classic impervious surface, and then the second image is the proposed, and it shows how some surfaces stay the same level of impervious. For instance, the house is not experiencing any changes, but some of those areas like the driveway and the patio and back would become those engineered surfaces instead. So as I mentioned, that ends up being still 15% above that 35% limit. It is a little bit of a reduction, but again, because it's over that 35%, they still need that variance. That ends up working out to about 33.5% impervious surface, and then about 18.5% of those engineered permeable surfaces. And this is typically what we ask for with impervious surface variances, is that whatever you're going to have that's over that limit, we want to see mitigated in some way. Some people add a rain garden, some people convert some of that to those permeable surfaces, but this meets what we would typically do for impervious surface variances. For that driveway setback variance, I mentioned they want to straighten the driveway. The new proposed driveway area is sort of outlined in red there. There is an overhang for the house today that the driveway actually goes under. So all of the changes in the front that require that variance are outlined in yellow. And so this is where that non-conforming protection thing kicks in a little bit. They're removing some areas of the driveway that are within that 10-foot setback area, which is in gray. There's no variance needed for that. The areas that are in green is what the driveway is doing today, existing. That doesn't need a variance because it's there. It's just that yellow triangle that basically encroaches further on the setback than the driveway does today, and so that's what the variance is for. So that new portion of the driveway ends up just matching that 3 feet from the property line all the way up. Regular neighborhood notification process, there's no neighborhood meeting required for variances alone. We haven't received any public comments either by May 31st or by the time of this meeting. The engineering department is also processing a right-of-way permit for improvements that are between the property line and the street itself. Because there are stormwater facilities on the site, we do require a stormwater facilities maintenance agreement. And as I mentioned with that tree removal, it does fall below the required replacement threshold, so there's no replacement required for that single tree being removed. So the questions to ask: is this proposal consistent with the comp plan? Is it reasonable? Is the plight of the landowner because of circumstances unique to the property? And would these variances and landscaping changes alter the essential character of the neighborhood? Happy to take any questions for staff and then go from there. Thanks.
Thank you, Planner Quarles. Do we have any questions of, yes?
I have a couple. Can you go back a couple slides with the picture with all the colors on it? And
I have many of those.
I really like that.
I'm guessing this
Then
one.
the next one. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so on the driveway, if I'm understanding correctly, where you said that the green is currently there, so they already are over the setback at 7 feet in parts of the driveway?
Yes.
Okay, and so then it would just be straightening all of that out?
Yep, so it basically takes the existing issue and makes it a little bit worse in terms of how much of the driveway is inside the setback, and so that's why the variance is needed.
Okay, and then I think on the one that you just had on with all the red and the yellow, give me just a sense of scale of what would need to gonna go away for them to meet the impervious surface requirements of 35%? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, it'd be really tough. I think the most important stats to know are that the home itself takes up about 23% of the lot, so that's already a significant chunk. And then the driveway, which obviously, goes from Rice Street all the way to the garage and back, is another 15% of the lot, so that already puts them at 38%. So basically anything else besides house and driveway is already over 35, let alone the existing conditions that are non-compliant.
Okay,
I have a question.
thank you. Nope, thank you. Very good.
Wonderful. I have a question for you, just to make sure my math is right here. So we have a existing of 54.9, reduced in total to 50.2.
Yes.
And that 50.2 is comprised of 33.5 and 18.5.
Yes, and I'm guaranteeing my staff report has better numbers because I'm looking at the .5s and I know they don't add up into a .2.
Right, so it's because it's 52, not 50.2%.
Yes.
Right?
I can verify that in the staff report really quick.
Okay. At least 33.5 and 18.5 equals 52. I mean, it's
Madam Chair,
small, but yes.
the staff report has the permeable landscape at 18.5 and the reduction of impervious surface to 50.4, which leaves about 31.9 for the permeable pavers.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We've solved the math riddle for the evening. Is that right?
Believe so.
All right, well, maybe we'll just confirm that, just so we got those numbers right, or at least I understand them correctly.
Yes.
When you get a chance. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Yes.
This is a bit of a side note question, but some of the narrative on the report indicated that the city treats all impervious and engineered surfaces equally, describing the amount of impervious surface. So when we consider a variance, permeable systems such as pavers are counted as impervious surfaces. So why don't we acknowledge that pavers are really impermeable?
It has to do with sort of the difficulty of administering permits in general for this work. There are a lot of cities around the lake that have different approaches to how they handle it. A lot of cities will have credit systems where they say, you know, a permeable paver system might be worth 50% impervious or 75% impervious, and they have sort of elaborate systems set up for how to count those. We've, over the years, decided to keep it simple and count everything as impervious surface, and then for that, for those surfaces that are above and require a variance, that's where we ask for a mitigation, like pervious pavers. There are definitely flaws in that system, but what it leads to is that you have a lot of freedom to do what you need to do within your limit, and then it's above that where the city basically starts micromanaging how you manage your excess stormwater runoff, if that makes sense.
And on new construction residential, is it dealt with the same way?
It is dealt with the same way. So what that ends up leading to is we're not necessarily incentivizing stormwater systems very much until they need a variance. So that's the side effect of that approach.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Good questions. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. Thank you very much, Planner Quarles. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant forward to address the commission. Please state your name and address for the record, your role if you're an advisor or other part of the applicant's team. And if you can keep it as close to 10 minutes as possible, it'd be greatly appreciated. Oh, sorry, would you kindly come to this way it gets recorded and everyone can hear you. Thank you.
Bob Palmer, Landscape Renovations. I'm here in place of Amber Hill, who couldn't make it at the last minute. I am the owner of Pebble and the lead project manager at Landscape Renovations and Pebble Design Group. Obviously a difficult project to come in and try to design something that works when you're as far over the surface limits as we are in this situation. We worked hard to try to come up with a solution to mitigate the water, reduce the square footage, and still have a usable and viable outcome for the Von Gillerans. In this situation, we tried to give them everything that they wanted, but there were a lot of things that they couldn't quite do based on where we were at. I think with this situation, we came up with a viable option and tried to stay consistent with, the city's recommendations for managing our water. And outside of this, I'm not quite sure how we could have mitigated any further landscaping on this project. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant at this time? None? Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, well, if there's no questions, then do we have any follow-up for staff on that, on those numbers? Or are you still working on that?
It should be that impervious surface number is closer to 31.7. It's the 18.5 that's correct.
31 point, okay, great. Thank you.
That includes credits for the for the permeable, correct?
That 31.7 is pure impervious, regular, the house, concrete, asphalt type areas, and then it's that 18.5 that's those permeable surfaces.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so the total reduction from 54.9 is to what total?
That 50.2.
50 point. Okay, so that's right, it's all right. Okay, great, thank you very much. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, then we can turn to the public hearing. And before we begin on the public hearing, I'd like to make some comments. The public hearing is a time for us to listen to you, our community, about the approval requests we're considering. It's an important part of the official process which allows the public to participate. Any questions asked during the public hearing will be held until the end of the hearing and may be addressed by staff at that point. With that said, I'd like to open the public hearing for consider the development application for impervious surface and driveway setback variances at 715 Rice Street East. Okay. If anyone would like to come forward, now is the time, and doesn't look like there's anyone here. So, Director Gellner, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak?
Chair, there is not.
Great, thank you. I can go ahead and close the public hearing. Great. Do we have any more questions for the applicant or staff at this point?
Because I just maybe have one question, and it might not even be relevant, but how would I know you said that in 2001, when the house was built, there wasn't the limits on this, but how did that come about, that this location or this lot ended up being the way it is?
Yeah, I think that, this entire area of this block along Rice Street was developed around the same time, so it's possible that we end up seeing issues from the other houses down the street if they ever want to make significant changes to their hardcover as well. But sometimes it's just how our code was written at the time, and since then, we've clamped down much more on impervious surfaces than we did then. It was also common for cities to just limit their impervious surfaces within their shoreland districts, was also a common approach, and this is outside of that, so that may also be something that factored into that in terms of this exact time when impervious surfaces were not there, lots were a certain sizes of houses were popular too.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I recall that impervious surface limit was added around the time that the city was responding to a lot of tear downs in the neighborhood, and I think so a lot of like height and setback and impervious surface limits were added to districts that didn't have them previously.
Okay, thank you.
All right, wonderful. If there's no more questions, then we can bring it back to the commission for discussion. If anyone would like to share their thoughts and begin, please do.
I can share. Sure. I mean, I think this is to me, it seems like a pretty easy call on the impervious surface. Is actually getting better, even though it's still over the surface limit. I don't think that there's really much else you can do if you want to do any kind of renovations in your backyard. I'm sympathetic to the homeowner who wants to make renovations and improvements, so I don't have any issues with it in the driveway. I mean, like you said, Valerie, it's making a little problem a little worse, but I mean, I can't imagine that. How many feet is that at all? I mean, 9.5 feet? Is that what I'm reading? That
It ends up being 7 feet over the setback.
yeah, I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
Good comments. Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Does anyone else have some thoughts to share? Commissioner Schwalbe?
If there was even one thing that I would question, it would be, I'm wondering why they couldn't just leave the driveway the way it is. I should have asked this before, I'm sorry I didn't think of it. But there doesn't seem to be a really good reason, unless there's a feature they're going to put in there, why they would need to extend that another 1.5 feet. The driveway. The yellow part, the lower level, just before you get to that overpass. That would be the only comment that I would have to make, but it really doesn't. It doesn't really matter that much. It's still going to be it just evens it up right down the line and doesn't put it over into the neighbor's yard or anything else. So I happened to see it there, but it really isn't a problem for me. It was just an
observation.
thought.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Other than that, all of their requests seem very reasonable to me, given when it was built, what the requirements were at the time, and how they're trying to make the best of a pretty small lot and put some interesting features in it.
Thank you. I mean, it sounds like we're already touching on some of these. We have 4 items that we need to make sure we're answering. They're probably somewhere. They are, is a proposal consistent with the comp plan? Is a variance reasonable, which we've talked about a little bit already? And is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the landowner? And would each variance alter the essential character of the locality? So we're definitely touching on those things, but I just want to bring that back to the forefront of your mind. Commissioner Planner, did you have some?
I was going to say, I agree with my fellow commissioners. And with the math that we're all doing, I think, the calculations are actually, we're going to be less than where we are today. I think that's always a positive. And then this combined with the stormwater management practice, I think that aligns with the city's commitment to best practices. It's consistent with the zoning district. I think it looks really nice back there. And it actually moves kind of that visible hardscape that's at the street view a little bit further back, creates a front lawn, so I think it's nice for the pedestrians along that area.
Thank you, Commissioner Planton. And with the variance for the driveway, we are asked to look at whether or not these are practical difficulties as well. So there's a variance connected with a practical difficulty. I'm sure you read it on page 5, but there was 3 items. The property owner's proposal for the property is reasonable but not permitted by the ordinance. The plight is due to circumstances unique to the property, and the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character. So it's the same sort of thing. Anyone else have any additions? Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner
I would point out the permeable pavers replacing the concrete. It is reducing one area, the purple area on that image, which was only 1.5 feet from the property line. So it's increasing the space in one area and decreasing it in another. And I did notice there was a drawing that the reason they have it going straight and square was so they can park 2 cars up at the end there.
Yeah, get a car off the street.
So I think the plan looks beautiful. I think it meets the expectations of our guidance here. And yeah, I'm in favor of what they are requesting.
Thank you, Commissioner Elk. Would you like to add?
Not much, actually. I agree with really all the commentary that's been said. I mean, we have an owner that acquired a legal non-conforming situation, trying to make the best of it, doing great improvements for the neighborhood. And as been stated, I think the criteria that we apply here has been met in approving the variance.
I agree with everybody, and without, repeating too much, I think the design, it adds, it's a modern change, and it makes an improvement, right? Which is the big thing. Impervious surface is really important for the city, and we pay a great deal of attention to it, so thank you for making an improvement, adding impervious surface area to the design, and we already have an issue with the driveway being over the setback. So to me, yes, we've hit the nail on the head on each one of these 4 items, or we've addressed each one of these 4 items with where it seems reasonable. So with no further ado, would someone like to make a motion if we have consensus here?
Shall I give it a try?
Yes, we always love, look, there it is.
Okay.
We have to get the wording exactly right.
No.
Okay, Commissioner Schwalbe.
Okay. I move that the Planning Commission direct staff to prepare a draft Planning Commission report and recommendation with appropriate findings reflecting a recommendation of approval for review and adoption at the next Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Schwalbe. May I have did you actually say yes? Can I have a second?
Oh,
Second, Commissioner Sorensen. And any further discussion? Okay, good. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the draft report and recommendation will be on the consent agenda at the next meeting, and after adoption will go on to the City Council for their consideration. Thank you to the applicant, staff, for participating in tonight's meeting. Wonderful. Next, we can go on to other items or new business, other items.
Yes, Chair. So looking at our calendar, our next meeting on June 17th will be canceled due to a lack of agenda items, so I'll send an official notice to you before the end of the week. And we will have a meeting on July 8th. We will have one public hearing that evening. And I anticipate you'll see plans for this online very soon. It's for 1905 Wayzata Boulevard. It's really a range of addresses between 1903 and 1907 Wayzata Boulevard. This is the office park you saw just a few months ago that requested the dental clinic or dermatology clinic. And now they're coming back to amend their PUD to show those different uses that they'd like to have so that they're not appearing in public hearings so often with every tenant. So that'll be on July 8th, and that's what I know for the summer so far. If you have a date that you'll need to be gone in the summer, please let me know so I can make sure we have a quorum for each meeting we have.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, well, if that's all, we are ready to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for participating. That concludes, and may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. May I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Elg. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes, and the Monday, June 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Wayzata Planning Commission is now adjourned. Thank you.